When the United States entered World War I, the Army hadn't settled on an effective light machine gun. The game changer came when John Moses Browning presented the Army with what we know as the 1918 Browning Automatic Rifle.
During the closing weeks of the war on the Western Front in the First World War, a new American weapon appeared on the battlefield, and it made its presence known in a powerful way. And it was the M1918 Browning Automatic Rifle, the brainchild of the greatest arms designer who ever lived, John Moses Browning. The Browning Automatic Rifle that fights during the closing weeks of the war, during the Meuse-Argonne Offensive, is fighting in the form of a gas-operated 30 caliber automatic weapon feeding from a detachable box magazine. The model 1918 BARs that fight the closing weeks of World War I, they come with fire control components that allow semi-automatic and full automatic fire.
The Browning Automatic Rifle, interestingly enough, was actually designed before America got into the war. And it was demonstrated along with the heavy Browning 1917 machine gun several months before we declared war on Germany. And it's not until June that Browning actually gets a requisition from the government, asking for a contract. And by that time, he's already set up that all of his manufacturing rights are with Colt. Well, Colt is busy making Vickers machine guns for the British Army, and they can't retool. So it isn't until February the following year that the contract is really let and set up with Winchester. Winchester starts making the Browning automatic rifles.
John Moses Browning made a lot of money on U.S. military weapons in World War I. He was making the finest weapons designs in the world. However, on the Browning automatic rifle, as a patriotic gesture, he actually ceded a large portion of his royalties to the military. He sold them the design for a one-time $1.5 million charge. Now, that sounds like a lot of money, and back then it was a lot of money, but instead, he had insisted on royalties. He would have made about 4 times that much on the BAR.
In terms of the development of the M1918 Browning Automatic Rifle, one of the questions you have to ask is, why is this thing even invented in the first place? Well, by the late stages of the First World War, of course, the whole war is just a stalemate, and gun designers and military planners and generals and everyone on the planet is trying to figure out, how do we break the stalemate? One of the elements that they're looking at trying to do is, how do we increase the firepower of the infantry units who are crossing no man's land? And how can we make sure that this firepower will allow them to overwhelm the enemy and thereby take their objectives? So that's where the origin of the BAR concept comes in.
When we look at guns today and think of the, belt feds, extended magazines, the lightness of them, the BAR certainly seems to be something really old school, a little bit too heavy, a little bit too long and clunky. But you got to remember, it's pretty much the first light machine gun, that we ever had, and it goes back to 1918. Back when a light German machine gun at that time was 50 pounds. To have the BAR, which fires 30-06 cartridges, an amazing rate of fire, was a tremendous advancement technologically.
In the aftermath of the armistice of November 1918, the Browning automatic rifle remains in service in the American military. And then the Browning automatic rifle enters service in other militaries as well. The Belgians use it and use it effectively. Eventually, the Polish begin using it and manufacture it under license. In fact, it's noteworthy that particularly the Polish version, the WZ-28 light machine gun. When Germany invades Poland and occupies it, Germany, of course, makes use of all Polish small arms, adopts them into the inventory of the Wehrmacht, and type certifies them. But the BAR's history doesn't end there, because the BAR continues in American military service during the interwar years until ultimately it undergoes modifications to become the M1918A2 Browning Automatic Rifle.
The Army started messing with it. They started adding things to the BAR to take it from a machine rifle to a light machine gun. And they added things like bipods. They ended up having to change out the buttstock because the butt was pretty weak. They crack a lot where the buffer assembly was. They ended up doing things like changing up the sights. And then they did something that during World War II proved effective, especially in the hands of the Marines, is they changed the fire control. It went from semi-automatic or full automatic to full automatic slow and full automatic fast. The BAR during World War II could have been helped by a higher magazine capacity, but they stayed with the original 20 rounds. Even when you go to the Smithsonian today, you see the 1918 A2 BAR as called by the curators there, but really it's a 1918 with a new buttstock and the new bipod assembly.